You are going to get worse before you get better because performance is a lag indicator, which raises the question, what data are we really chasing? Are we chasing improvement in the long term, or are we merely chasing observations of performance in the moment? My name is Matt Tometz, and I'm here for another edition of 5 Minute Sports Science, where I'm going to ask and explain my answer to the question, what data are we really chasing? Because performance is a lag indicator. Here are a few examples. I had an athlete run a 5:15 sprint, so 15-yard acceleration. They ran a 1.48. The next one, I said, hey, take a little bit bigger steps because they were more of a choppier athlete, so just working on stride length. And then they ran the rep, and they crushed it in my eyes. I thought they completely did what I asked them to do, check that box. But they ran slower. They ran a 1.50, and the athlete looked pretty disappointed. And I was like, no. Hold up. That was perfect. Do that again. The next rep, they had the same form, but because it was a little bit more natural, because they had done it once in the prior rep, they ran a 1.46. I think that this is a perfect example of how performance is a lag indicator. Now, performance could improve over a few reps, it could improve over a few weeks, it could improve over a few months. But in that example, it really made me ask, what are we chasing? Are we chasing that sprint time once, regardless of the form, or are we chasing better form that in the long run, as it becomes more natural, will lead to decreased times? In this training process, as we go along this continuum of unconscious incompetence, which is our natural, not the most efficient, not technically correct running form, but our natural form, to unconscious competence, to becoming supernatural, running with the right form, not having to think about it. As we transition from this end to this end, there are going to be slower times along the way because the next step is conscious incompetence. You know that there's cues to think about. You know that there's more efficient ways to run. And then you move to conscious competence, to where you're doing it correct, but you have to think a lot about it, and then eventually it becomes natural. So along those ways, times are going to go up. Times are going to get worse. You will not get better right away because you have to transition along this continuum. So that raises the question, like I said, of are we chasing the what that we're doing, the performance, or are we chasing how we are completing those reps? Are we getting across that continuum regardless of the numbers, trusting the training process that once we get to conscious incompetence, that's when the times will definitely drop. To put this another way, performance is what we're doing, but in this training process, we have to know and chase how we're doing it, how we're completing those reps, because that's definitely going to add up in the long run. And the perfect example is the 1080 sprint. Now, in one rep, one sprint, you get the time, velocity, power, and force of the rep. But above those numbers, you get the graph or the curve of how that rep was completed. So you can see every step, the curve, you can see the little wobbles depending on which was a misstep. You can see asymmetry side to side. And are we chasing just increasing that velocity number? Or are we chasing making a smoother graph? Are we chasing improving that one specific step? Are we chasing getting more effective steps by increasing the size of the mountain of our curve? Two more quick running examples. There was an athlete that was running a flying 15, so 15 yards of max velocity running, and they stumbled at the end. But because they stumbled a little bit at the end, they were actually falling for a few steps. They ran their second fastest time of the day. Now, is that to be celebrated? Yes and no. Combining the coach's eye, how they ran it, plus what they ran of their time, you can say, even though you stumbled, that was a super nice run, and that's why that was the second fastest time of the day. So let's do that rep again. Just try not to fall. And the second example is if we're doing a 10-yard acceleration, training for a 40-yard dash. An athlete can run a really fast time if they come out super low, and even if they stumble for a few steps, they're going to have a much greater body lean, actually cover a lot more ground, and that could be a super fast time. But that inefficient, that stumbly 10 yards is not going to turn into a fast 40-yard dash. So although technically it was a 10-yard sprint and it might have been a really fast time, how they completed it was not the best. So just some context on why are we here, what are we training for, and then consequently, how are our training reps going to help us get to that point. And here's a quick sport example. Are we chasing batting average in baseball, or are we chasing hard hit ball percentage? Batting average is what we're doing, that's the performance. Did I get the hit or did I not get the hit? While hard hit ball percentage is going to be how we're doing it, how we're taking our at bats, how we are putting the ball in play, are we doing it with authority? And we just have to trust in this training process, or just this process of getting better at sport, that if we hit more balls hard in play, that eventually the performance metrics will come. Final disclaimer is that performance metrics do matter. I'm not saying that they don't. I am saying in this training model, we should pay more attention to how we are completing those reps as opposed to merely what happens. If we chase how we do it as the lead indicator, if we are chasing attendance in training, if we are chasing the amount of times that the coach says, that was awesome, you did exactly what I wanted or what I asked, and regardless of the time, we got better. If we are chasing the graph on the 1080, those are going to lead, those are going to be right in the moment, things we can track and be conscious of that will consequently eventually, I don't know how long it'll take, just a few more reps, a few more weeks, a few more months, to a lag indicator of performance. So yes, why we're all here is to get better at sport when the light comes on. But when we are in the trenches, in training, day in and day out, we have to be more conscious of how can we track quantitatively, qualitatively, how we are doing those reps, because that is consequently what is going to lead to increased performance over time.